Daemon Targaryen just burned Harrenhal to the ground and changed Westeros forever. What if I told you that one man, one dragon, and 13 days of absolute chaos completely rewrote the rules of warfare in Westeros? Because that's exactly what happened when Daemon Targaryen decided Harrenhal needed a serious renovation. With fire. Lots of fire. Before we dive into this dragon-sized disaster, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the madness of Westeros. Trust me, you want to be here for what comes next. Let me set the scene. It is the year 130 AC, and Westeros is tearing itself apart in the dance of the dragons. Brother against brother, dragon against dragon, and everyone's picking sides like it is the world's most dysfunctional family reunion. On one side, you have got the Blacks supporting Rhaenyra Targaryen's claim to the Iron Throne. On the other, the Greens backing her half-brother Aegon II. And right in the middle of this royal mess sits Harrenhal, the largest castle in the Seven Kingdoms, looking absolutely unburnable with its massive stone walls and intimidating towers. Spoiler alert, nothing is unburnable when you have got a dragon named Caraxes and absolutely zero chill. Now, Harrenhal was not just any castle. This thing was enormous. We were talking about 5 massive towers, walls thick enough to survive pretty much anything conventional warfare could throw at it, and a reputation for being basically impregnable. The lords of House Strong have been sitting pretty in this fortress for generations, thinking they were untouchable. And technically, they were right. No army was taking Harrenhal by force. But here's the thing about the Targaryens that everyone keeps forgetting until it is way too late. They do not need armies when they have dragons. Enter Daemon Targaryen, the rogue prince himself, riding his blood-red dragon Caraxes like he has got a personal vendetta against architecture. And honestly, he kind of did. Harrenhal was held by House Strong, who were loyal to the Greens, and Daemon needed to send a message so loud that every lord in Westeros would hear it. That message? Team Black means business, and that business involves turning your castle into a bonfire. Here's where things get absolutely wild. Daemon does not just show up and start blasting. Oh no, this guy's got style. He arrives at Harrenhal with Caraxes, and the sight alone is enough to make everyone inside collectively lose their minds. Picture this. You're a guard on the walls of the most fortified castle in the realm, feeling pretty secure, and then the sky turns red with dragon fire and the screeching of what sounds like a demon serpent with wings. Because Caraxes, affectionately nicknamed the Blood WYRM, looked and sounded like your worst nightmare had a baby with a really angry noodle. But wait, it gets better. Or worse, depending on whether you were inside Harrenhal at the time. Daemon did not need to break down walls or siege the castle for months like some common foot soldier. He just flew Caraxes over Harrenhal and started the barbecue of the century. Those massive stone walls everyone was so proud of, completely useless against dragon fire that burns hot enough to melt stone and turn steel into liquid. The towers that were supposed to protect the defenders became giant ovens. The courtyards turned into death traps. And the famous godswood? Well, let's just say those weirwood trees got a lot more fire than they bargained for. The assault lasted 13 days. 13 days of absolutely relentless dragon-based destruction. And here's the kicker. Daemon barely lost any men. Because why would he? He was fighting from a sky against people who could do absolutely nothing to stop him. It was like bringing a flamethrower to a knife fight, except the flamethrower is a giant flying murder lizard and the knife is, well, regular knives. Now let's talk about what makes this whole thing so brilliant from a military perspective, because it is not just about the spectacle. Daemon fundamentally changed how warfare worked in Westeros with this single move. Before Harrenhal, castles were everything. You built big walls, stocked up on supplies, and you could hold out against pretty much any army for months or even years. The entire feudal system was built on the idea that castles made you safe. Lords invested massive amounts of gold and resources into fortifications because that is what kept them alive and in power. Daemon just made all of that obsolete in less than 2 weeks. After Harrenhal burned, Every lord in Westeros had to reconsider their entire defensive strategy. What good are walls when dragons could just fly over them? What is the point of a moat when your enemy does not need to cross it? Suddenly, the only real defense against dragons was other dragons, which meant the Targaryens had an even bigger stranglehold on power than before. This is the moment when everyone realized that conventional warfare was over. The game had changed, and only the dragon riders knew the new rules. But here is where it gets even more interesting. The fall of Harrenhal was not just a military victory. It was psychological warfare at its finest. Daemon was not trying to just take a castle. He was trying to terrify everyone else into submission. And it worked beautifully. Word of what happened to Harrenhal spread across Westeros faster than wildfire. Lords who were considering supporting the Greens suddenly had second thoughts. Because if Harrenhal, the mightiest fortress in the realm, could fall in 13 days, what chance did their little castles have? How Strong was effectively annihilated. The men who survived the initial assault either bent the knee immediately or fled into the countryside. The castle itself became this haunted, cursed ruin that nobody wanted to occupy. And honestly, can you blame them? Would you want to sleep in a castle that still smelled like barbecued ancestors and had dragon claw marks on every surface? The strategic implications were massive. Harrenhal sat right in the heart of the Riverlands, which meant controlling it gave you control over one of the most important regions in Westeros. Rivers, roads, resources, everything flowed through the Riverlands. By taking Harrenhal, Daemon secured a massive tactical advantage for the Blacks. He cut off supply lines, controlled movement through the region, and established a base of operations right in enemy territory. It was the equivalent of setting up shop in your opponent's backyard and daring them to do something about it. And the best part? Nobody could do anything about it, because Daemon had a dragon and they did not. This whole assault also revealed something crucial about Daemon's character. The guy was ruthless, sure, but he was also incredibly smart. He understood that in a civil war, perception matters almost as much as actual military victories. By making such a dramatic statement at Harrenhal, he was not just taking territory. He was breaking spirits. He was making the enemy question whether they could win at all. That is the kind of strategic thinking that separates legendary commanders from regular ones. The aftermath of Harrenhal's fall rippled through the entire dance of the dragons. It emboldened the Blacks, terrified the Greens, and forced everyone to recalculate their odds. More importantly, it proved that dragons were not just symbols of power or glorified flying horses. They were weapons of mass destruction that could end wars before they really began. This is why the Targaryen dynasty lasted as long as it did. Not just because they had dragons, but because they knew how to use them to maximum effect. So what is the real lesson from Daemon's assault on Harrenhal? Simple. In a Game of Thrones, the rules only matter until someone with a dragon decides they do not. Daemon Targaryen took the most impregnable fortress in Westeros and turned it into a cautionary tale about what happens when you bet against fire and blood. He changed warfare, shifted the balance of power, and secured his place in history as one of the most effective and terrifying military commanders Westeros had ever seen. Thanks for watching, and remember, winter is coming, but dragon fire burns hotter.